My name is Diana Foster. I'm 48 years old, and I'm about to tell you the story of how my parents faked my sister's death for 30 years, what I went through because of it, and what happened when I finally found the proof. I was 18 years old when my parents told me my sister had died. It was a Monday morning. I was getting ready for school. I was happy. I was excited. I was going to see my friends. I was going to live my life. I was going to be happy. My mother knocked on my door. She said, "Diana, we need to talk." I said, "What is it, Mom? I'm going to be late for school." She said, "Diana, your sister is gone. She died in a car accident." "I'm so sorry, Diana. I'm so sorry." I was shocked. I was hurt. I was devastated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe my sister was dead. I couldn't believe she was gone. I said, "Mom, what happened? When did it happen? Why didn't anyone tell me?" She said, "Diana, it happened last night. I didn't want to tell you until you were ready. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." I cried. I cried for hours. I cried until I had no tears left. I cried until I was empty. I cried until I was nothing. I grieved for years. I grieved for my sister. I grieved for my loss. I grieved for everything. I grieved for the life we could have had. I grieved for the future we should have shared. I went to therapy. I talked to someone. I worked through my pain. I worked through my anger. I worked through everything. I worked through my grief. I never stopped missing my sister. I never stopped loving her. I never stopped wishing she was still alive. I never stopped hoping she would come back. When I was 35, I started to suspect something. I started to suspect that my parents were lying to me. I started to suspect that my sister didn't die in a car accident. I noticed things. I noticed that my parents never talked about the accident. I noticed that they always changed the subject when I asked questions. I noticed that they were hiding something. I noticed that they were lying. I started to ask questions. I said, "Mom, can you tell me more about Emily's accident? What happened? Where did it happen? Who was involved?" My mother said, "Diana, I don't want to talk about it. It's too painful. It's in the past. Let it go. Move on with your life." I said, "Mom, I can't let it go. I need to know what happened. I need to know the truth. I need to know everything." She said, "Diana, there's nothing to know. It was an accident. It's over. It's done. Let it go." I started to investigate. I started to look for proof. I started to look for evidence. I started to look for answers. I started to look for the truth. I went to the hospital. I went to the police. I went to the coroner's office. I went everywhere. I asked everyone. I looked everywhere. I found nothing. But I didn't give up. I kept going. I kept searching. I kept believing. I kept hoping. I kept fighting. I was 48 years old when I got a letter from a coroner. Her name was Dr. Patricia Williams. She was 75 years old. She had been a coroner for 50 years. She had seen everything. She knew everything. The letter said, "Dear Ms. Foster, I have been trying to reach you for many years. I have information about your sister's death. I was the coroner on duty the night she died. I have been keeping a file for 30 years. I think it's time you knew the truth. Please come to my office. I will explain everything. Sincerely, Dr. Williams." I was confused. I was curious. I was scared. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I would find. I didn't know if I was ready for the truth. I went to her office. She was sitting at her desk. She was old. She was tired. She was ready to tell the truth. She was ready to tell everything. She said, "Diana, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for 30 years. I wanted someone to know the truth. I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to know everything." She reached into her drawer. She pulled out a file. It was thick. It was full of papers. It was full of everything. It was full of the truth. It was full of the proof. It was full of the evidence. She said, "Diana, I have a file on your parents. I have a file on everything they did. I've been keeping it for 30 years. I wanted someone to know the truth. I wanted you to know the truth." I wanted you to know everything. I opened the file. I started reading. I couldn't stop. I couldn't look away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The file was thick. It was full of papers. It was full of everything. It was full of the truth. It was full of the proof. It was full of the evidence. The first page was a summary. A single sheet of paper that listed everything. Everything my parents had done. Everything they had taken. Everything they had destroyed. Everything they had lied about. Summary of parental fraud and fake death cover-up involving Emily Foster. I read the words. My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't feel. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Fake death. Emily Foster did not die in a car accident. She is alive. Her parents faked her death. They sent her away. They told everyone she was dead. They lied to everyone. Fraud. Mr. and Mrs. Foster committed fraud. They faked their daughter's death. They received insurance money. They committed fraud. They stole from their own family. Emotional abuse. Mr. and Mrs. Foster emotionally abused their daughter Diana. They lied to her for 30 years. They destroyed her relationship with her sister. They destroyed her life. Manipulation. Mr. and Mrs. Foster manipulated Diana. They made her believe her sister was dead. They made her grieve for years. They made her suffer. They made her life a lie. I turned the page. Behind the summary were the details. Page after page after page of evidence. Each one a knife in my heart. Each one a piece of my life. Each one a piece of the truth. Emily Foster, age 18, did not die in a car accident. She is alive. Her parents sent her away. They faked her death. She is living in another state. Mr. and Mrs. Foster received insurance money, committed fraud, stole from their own family, lied to everyone. Mrs. Foster told Diana her sister was dead. She lied to her for 30 years. She destroyed her life. She destroyed her happiness. I documented everything. I documented everything they did. I wanted someone to know the truth. I wanted Diana to know the truth. I wanted her to know what her parents did. I wanted her to know everything. I read the entire file. I cried. I couldn't stop crying. I cried for hours. I cried until I had no tears left. I cried until I was empty. I cried until I was nothing. I realized everything. My parents had faked my sister's death. They had sent her away. They had lied to me for 30 years. They had destroyed my life. They had destroyed my relationship with my sister. They had destroyed everything. I called Dr. Williams. I said, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me what was happening? Why did you let me suffer all these years?" She said, "I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't think you were ready. I was afraid. I was afraid of your parents. I was afraid of what they would do. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I said, "Dr. Williams, thank you. Thank you for keeping the file. Thank you for telling me the truth. Thank you for giving me my life back." I started to search for my sister. I used the file. I used the records. I used everything. I used the truth. I used the proof. I used the evidence. I found her. She was living in another state. She had changed her name. She had started a new life. She had a family. She had children. She had everything. I went to see her. She was surprised to see me. She said, "Diana, how did you find me? I thought I would never see you again. I thought I would never see anyone from my old life again." I said, "Emily, I know everything. I know our parents faked your death. I know they sent you away. I know they lied to me for 30 years. I know everything." She started to cry. She said, "Diana, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. I wanted to. I wanted to tell you so badly. But I was scared. I was scared of our parents. I was scared of what they would do. I was scared of everything." I said, "Emily, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for anything. I'm just happy I found you. I'm just happy you're alive. I'm just happy I have my sister back." We hugged. We cried. We started to heal. We started to become sisters again. We started to love each other again. I went to my parents' house. I had the file in my hand. I had the proof. I had everything. I had the truth. My mother was in the kitchen. She was cooking dinner. She didn't look up when I walked in. She said, "Diana, what are you doing here? You didn't call. You never call anymore." I said, "Mom, we need to talk." I placed the file on the counter. I said, "Mom, do you know what this is?" She looked at it. She said, "What is this? What are you talking about?" I said, "This is a file from Dr. Williams. It's a file on you. It's a file on everything you did to me. It's a file on all your lies. It's a file on your cover-up." I started reading from the file. I read about the fake death. I read about the fraud. I read about the lies. I read about everything. I read about the truth. My mother's face turned pale. She said, "Diana, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're trying to do to me." I said, "Mom, I have proof. I have evidence. I have everything. You faked my sister's death. You sent her away. You lied to me for 30 years. You destroyed my life. You destroyed everything." My father came into the room. He said, "Diana, what's going on? What is this? What are you doing?" I said, "Dad, you faked my sister's death. You sent her away. You lied to me for 30 years. You destroyed my life. You destroyed everything." I never spoke to my parents again. I never saw them again. I never wanted to. I moved on. I rebuilt my life. I found happiness. I found peace. I found my sister. I found everything. I am 48 years old now. I have a good life. I have a good job. I have good friends. I have my sister back. I have everything I ever wanted. My parents are old. They are alone. They have nothing. They lost everything. They lost their daughter. They lost their family. They lost everything. If you've ever been lied to by someone you trusted, I want you to hear something. You didn't deserve what happened to you. You didn't deserve to be used. You didn't deserve to be manipulated. You didn't deserve to be taken advantage of. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know who you really are. You deserve to be loved. My name is Diana Foster. I'm 48 years old. My parents faked my sister's death for 30 years. And I found her. If this story made you feel something, drop a comment below. Tell me the word that describes what you feel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Subscribe for more stories like this. Thank you for listening to mine. I started to heal. I started to let go. I started to move on. I started to forgive. I started to forget. I started to live. I went to therapy. I talked to someone. I worked through my pain. I worked through my anger. I worked through everything. I worked through my past. I worked through my trauma. I learned to forgive. I learned to let go. I learned to move on. I learned to live. I learned to love. I learned to be happy. I learned to be free. I found peace. I found happiness. I found love. I found everything. I found my life. I found my future. I found my joy.